Have you ever really thought about what guarantees a medical device, something truly critical, is going to work perfectly when it matters most? Well, it's not luck. It's this huge, complex, and mostly invisible system of quality control. So let's pull back the curtain and see how this whole framework actually keeps us safe. I mean, just look at a pacemaker. This is a high-risk, life-sustaining device. The amount of trust we put in something like this is it's immense. And that trust, it's the final product of a really long, really demanding process, one that's all about expecting things to fail so you can prevent them from ever happening. So how in the world is that trust actually engineered? How does a manufacturer make sure that every single device out of thousands or even millions meets the absolute highest standards for safety and for effectiveness? The answer, it turns out, is in a very structured, layered approach to quality. A great way to think about it is as a pyramid of quality. Every level builds right on top of the one below it, and together they create this incredibly strong, resilient structure. It governs everything from the very first spark of an idea all the way to a device being used by a patient maybe years down the line. So let's build this pyramid from the ground up. Okay, the base of our pyramid, the very foundation of everything, is something called Good Manufacturing Practices, or GMP. You can think of this as the non-negotiable price of entry. It's the absolute minimum legal standard for any company that wants to make medical devices, period. And the whole core idea of GMP really comes down to this one simple but incredibly powerful mantra. It's all about consistency and documentation. It's about making sure that every batch of a product is made the exact same way, every single time, with zero deviation. Think of GMP like the legal building codes for manufacturing. They're rules set by regulators, like the FDA, and they are not optional. Their focus is absolutely laser sharp. Make sure the product is consistent, prevent any kind of contamination, and at the end of the day, protect public health. All right, let's move up to the next level of our pyramid. If GMPs are those universal building codes that everyone has to follow, then the Quality Management System, or QMS, is the specific, custom-designed blueprint for your organization. And this table really lays out the key difference. See, GMP is all about compliance with a fixed set of rules. It's the baseline. A QMS, on the other hand, is all about performance. It forces a company to identify its own unique goals, its own unique risks, and then build a flexible system to manage them across the entire life cycle of the product. This is where quality stops being just a requirement and starts being a real competitive advantage. So, where does a strong QMS even begin? You might think it's out on the factory floor, but nope. It starts way, way earlier than that. It begins with the very first decisions that are made during the design process. And get this, the FDA found something pretty staggering. Almost half, a full 44% of all voluntary device recalls could have been prevented if there had been better design controls. That is a massive number, and it just goes to show you that the choices made in the design phase have huge consequences later on. And this is exactly why the design control process is so incredibly rigorous. It's about translating what a user actually needs into technical requirements you can measure. Then it checks two absolutely critical things. Verification asks, did we build the device right? Does it meet all the technical specs? And then validation asks the bigger, more important question, did we build the right device? Does this thing actually solve the user's problem? The other essential pillar that guides a QMS is a constant, proactive assessment of risk. And risk management isn't just a box you check one time. It's a whole philosophy that has to run through the entire life cycle of the product. And you know, in this industry, risk isn't just some vague, fuzzy concept. It's defined with surgical precision. The international standard ISO 14971 breaks it down into two key parts. What's the probability that harm could occur, and if it does, just how severe would that harm be? This gives companies a really systematic way to evaluate and deal with potential dangers. So, let's be realistic. Even with the best systems, sometimes things still go wrong. What happens when a problem is found after a device is already out there on the market? Well, that's when you call in the Quality Systems Emergency Response Team, CAPA. And make no mistake, this is critically important. Having problems with your CAPA system, that stands for Corrective and Preventative Action, is consistently the #1 reason companies get cited during FDA inspections. The #1 reason. That tells you everything about how seriously regulators take a company's ability to find and truly fix its problems. So here's the crucial part. A good CAPA process goes deep. It's not enough to just put a Band-Aid on a symptom. You have to collect data from everywhere, dig deep to find the actual root cause. And then, and this is key, you implement a corrective action to fix the problem right now and a preventive action to make sure it can never ever happen again. Now, for a really huge development that's reshaping this entire landscape. For decades, the US kind of had its own set of rules. But recently, there's been a massive shift towards a single global approach to quality. For the longest time, manufacturers basically had to live in two different worlds. There was the FDA's Quality System Regulation, or QSR, just for the US market, and then for most of the rest of the world, there was the global standard, ISO 13485. The big push has been to bring these two worlds together. Well, that unification is now a reality. The FDA has officially aligned its regulations with that international ISO 1345 standard. This creates one unified framework called the Quality Management System Regulation, or QMSR. And for manufacturers that sell devices all over the world, this is an absolute game changer. And, this change didn't just happen overnight. This has been a long journey. It started with the original QSR way back in 1997, and it evolved over decades, finally leading to the FDA's new rule. The new, unified system officially goes into full effect in 2025. Which brings us to a really interesting final question to think about. By creating a single, harmonized quality standard for the whole world, we're taking a lot of the regulatory friction out of the system. So could this global alignment not only make our devices safer, but also clear the runway for life-saving innovations to actually reach us faster? It's a pretty compelling thought.